Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I am John alongside my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Friday night Smackdown review. And I gotta tell you folks, for me personally, I loved this SmackDown. Three things in particular made me really have fun with this show, and we're going to go in depth on all three of those things in just a little bit. But first, let me hand the reins over to my cohort and commentary here. What did you think of this SmackDown?
It was quite the enjoyable SmackDown. The one thing I do want to say, though, before we actually start discussing the show as a whole, is that I do want to apologize to everybody for it being late. I watched SmackDown. We were watching something else, and we were watching that until probably 9 o'clock because we knew that SmackDown was available unedited online, and we knew we wanted to watch the unedited version because that doesn't have them with like the crazy amounts of canned heat that they add post-production. So we knew we wanted to watch that, so we just kind of chilled out and watched something else until like almost 9 o'clock. By the time SmackDown was over, it was like 10:15. So you would expect, oh yeah, sure, we'll be fine to go. Let's just record. But I was dead tired, so apologizing here for this being late. But it's only about like 12 hours later than it would normally be. So hopefully you guys can forgive us because this is a fun episode of SmackDown.
Oh, I absolutely cannot wait to talk about this. So with that said, I mean, unless you have anything else you want to say, I want to get right into our first segment.
Do it.
Heat of the night! And
With
I've got
emphasis.
dude, I'm fired up right now. You don't even know. I have one nitpick. So, I mean, unless you want me to address it here, Ashton, because that
Yeah,
seems
dude, go for it. Because here's my thing. Nitpicks are still something that bring down the mood.
right, right. For me personally, Ashton, and maybe I'm just guilty of just hardcore fandom, and I could be the first to accept that. I didn't like that the Wyatt family couldn't get that decisive victory over the Usos, that Bray Wyatt had to interfere and they win yet again. You know, we were talking about this issue on our last episode about the Usos potentially being OP. And I still believe, because we have a week left, we have the Raw go home. We have NXT TakeOver, which that shouldn't add at all to payback, and then we have the SmackDown go home show. So there's still time for that match to be made, but I'm still waiting for the Wyatt family some way, somehow to get theirs. Now, yes, Bray Wyatt had an amazing moment at the London Raw, and that was all great. But Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, they deserve some shine themselves, and I got really excited because I told you I had watched a video of them actually briefly beating the Usos for the tag titles at a live event, but they had cheated to do it. Luke Harper had clocked one of the Usos with the tag titles, and that's how they were able to get the pin. Finley came down, explained what happened. The match got restarted. The Usos won. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they'll touch on that, and then the Wyatt family get their legitimate non-title win here. That didn't happen. So I don't know. It's frustrating seeing two-thirds of Team OP, as we call them, get the leg up yet again on their adversaries, even if it was by their own adversaries doing, again, with Bray Wyatt getting physically involved.
Yeah, I can definitely understand your problem with this. I think that the saving grace for me is Bray interfered not because he was afraid that his team was going to lose, but just because he was getting sick of it because things were starting to break down and he wanted to kind of take a cheap shot. If it would have been like a situation where somebody had just hit a super kick on Rowan and they were getting ready to go for the top rope splash for the win, I could understand it being a little bit more like, oh, well, he just did that so that they wouldn't lose. But I don't feel like that was what the scenario was here. I just feel like Bray wanted to get in a cheap shot to kind of show the Usos where their bread is buttered.
Yeah, and you know what? When you put it in that context, it's definitely easier to swallow. I just think you and I, having watched these guys on NXT, do their thing and then come up here, we know what they're really capable of. And I would think the audiences by now, being exposed to them this long, are aware of that as well. Personally, I just want to see them get their due, but we'll see what happens.
One of my favorite spots of the entire night came in that match too. So I can't wait to get there. But for now, let's backtrack a little bit and start at the beginning.
Absolutely. So let us get right into our Friday night Smackdown review. And Ashton, how we open this show up?
Well, I mean, first of all, we opened the show up with freaking Tony Kimmel trying to figure out how to do an introduction for Jimmy Hart, which was sad, annoying, pathetic, and just plain obnoxious. So eventually he does figure out a way to introduce him. I guess he just kind of gets it right. But apparently he didn't get it right enough because he kept on freaking doing this during every commercial break for the rest of the show. It was obnoxious. And that's putting it mildly. So Jimmy Hart comes out and introduces Hulk Hogan, and Hogan basically just cuts like a really quick plug saying, hey guys, guess what? The network is coming to the UK. What you gonna do when everything that I just talked about runs wild on you?
You know what? That's the perfect review. I don't want to stay too long on this. Hogan comes out, pretty much reveals the little secret, as he calls it, that the UK will be getting the WWE Network, and that was pretty much the biggest thing Hogan had. Like nobody interacted with him. He didn't make any announcements about tonight's show in particular. That was it. So arrive, plug network, leave.
And I like him in this role, but the one problem I have is that he didn't even attach a date to it. He wasn't like, listen up, UK brothers. The network is coming, and you all have known that since February, but guess what, brothers? I know what date it is. And then he could have actually, like, added something to what we already knew. But no, it was just Hulk Hogan in the UK for the first time in 20 years, which is a big deal on its own. So we'll let it slide.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, so up next, we actually opened this show with a no DQ match between Dolph Ziggler and Batista. Talk about a hot open, man.
Absolutely. And you know what? These guys went out there, they worked at it, and to me, they had a very fun no disqualification match. What did
Can
you
I
think of
just
this match, Ashton?
throw it out there that Batista has gone from just awful to flat out underrated?
Yeah, it's funny, dude, because it's really making me seriously begin to think that maybe Batista needed to work the kinks out because he was away from the ring for quite a few years. And, I'll be the first one to admit, I mean, I personally enjoyed ripping him to shreds for his in-ring work because I'm just thinking, oh man, Dave, what happened to you? But he's really come into his own now that they've committed to him being heel, now that he's a part of Evolution. I feel like the environment is perfect for Batista to really thrive, and this match is indicative of that because I feel like these guys really put on an entertaining no DQ match.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? To me, when I saw this match, you know what it reminded me of?
What was that?
Daniel Bryan's first ever match on Raw against Batista in, I believe, what was a Beat the Clock challenge.
That's correct. That is correct. And yeah, I could see where you would derive that sentiment. Like Ziggler to me came off as the scrappy, not going down without a fight kind of babyface, and it works because Ziggler gets some nice shine here. There's one point he throws Batista over the announce table, and then he goes over him with a sledge. They actually both bury Michael Cole underneath their body mass. It was
And of course, Michael Cole said, and I quote, I had 500 pounds of man on top of me.
Yeah, because that's not going to be generated into, oh, I don't know, a million memes. Uh, Ziggler got another great moment where he was able to get a steel chair and really go to town on the back of Batista, really. And Michael Cole, I think, had the best soundbite. It was a long time since we've seen Dolph Ziggler that aggressive, and that's the perfect word. I mean, Ziggler showed a lot of aggression in this matchup.
Yeah, he showed quite a bit of aggression, and really, he looked great, but he took one too many risks.
But you know what? I like that that's the narrative that they went with for this loss for Dolph because Batista was going to go for the Batista bomb on a set of the steel steps. Ziggler gets a low blow in, so kind of poetic justice and a callback to their match last week. Also, another callback that I didn't mention that I thought was really clever. It's the little nuances that I think make a match special. When Ziggler was doing the 10 punches in the corner, he made sure to wrap Batista's arms in the ropes so he couldn't low blow him again. So, like, yeah, Ziggler also showing some shrewdness in this match, which I liked. But he gets the low blow to Batista. His head is like, laying on the steel step. Ziggler goes to the apron, and what could have been the oh my god moment of the year had it connected. He was trying to go for a famouser off the apron onto the steel steps. But Batista, I think, was a bit quicker to the draw there, Ashton.
Yep, Batista just kind of walked away, let Dolph slam into the steps. He kind of tripped over the steps and ended up landing on the floor on the outside, and it looked like a pretty brutal fall. Definitely hurt his leg on the way down, and then Batista rolled him back into the ring, nailed him with a spear, and got the 3 count.
Yeah, it was also a pretty impressive looking spear too. The first really impressive one that I've seen from Dave. I don't know if that's a sell job from Ziggler or again, as you said, Batista's gone from underweighted, or maybe it's a beautiful marriage of both. But regardless, what can't be denied is that Batista did get the win here. And in the post match, when it looked like he was done, he was kind of smiling to himself because I think he silenced his own doubts and maybe spread some fear inside the Shield that no, Batista is not the weak link. He goes back in the ring and he hits a thunderous Batista bomb to punctuate that dominance.
Yeah, this was a good, long, fun match. This might have actually been the longest match of the night because I went back and watched Del Rio Sheamus, and it was only like 9 or 10 minutes long, believe it or not.
Yeah, you know what? I can definitely believe it. I think given the stipulation and the talent involved, it wouldn't surprise me if they got more time than anybody else that night, and they definitely put it to good use.